the whole company will engage in this. You
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
that
yeah.
all employees, because even when she described company, she mentioned twice how many people.
Yeah. Over 10,000, I think, something like that, wasn't it?
Yes,
10,000?
it's only Netherlands, and she mentioned how many in general in the world, and you already feel that all of them will be in this program, in this research.
Yeah.
Everybody will get.
Yeah, and basically that was also the gap that she kind of showed. So predominantly Dutch people participate in this, and not
Yes, that this is the
the
problem.
8,000 other people.
It's
Yeah.
a challenge statement because
Yeah.
we need to take other people, other 10,000 people
Yeah.
in the world
Yeah.
to engage them in these innovation programs.
So, looking at these assessment criteria, looking at the proposal you have just read, looking at everything we've discussed this morning, what is one thing that you think, okay, I need to remember that, that's a tip to myself, when I am at the process of writing this first chapter?
Why? Why? Answer
Why,
the question
yeah.
why.
Put big
Always.
why, in front of
Yeah.
you, yes. Something else?
I would say that you need to be structured.
Yes.
Because when you are doing one by one, you have introduction, you have here, she has about company, about program, what they have, and everything is clearly,
Yeah.
it's easy
Yeah.
to yourself to
Yeah.
read and
Yeah.
to understand where you're going.
Yeah. I think it's clearly linked. As a reader, you understand what she's doing, you can follow it. It's not abstract, difficult language.
Yes,
it's,
And I think for her it's also important because when you start to third chapter, you can go back and see what your statement was.
Yeah.
And where you're going.
Yeah. Yes, something.
Yeah, I think it's important to really take your time to dive into the organization and also describe with a critical point of view
Yeah.
all the different things that you see happening.
And that's also why I want you to start now to think about application companies. I think I hope now it makes sense that I say if you have one before Christmas, you have still a month for the whole proposal, and it's already tight. Eh?
Yeah.
So to do this and ask these critical questions and drink the cup of coffees you need to drink. Yeah. Paulina, something that you take with you as an advice to yourself?
Yeah, because when I read that when it was a lot of words, kind of felt it's also my bias, because I also tend to introduce a lot of set words, and yeah, kind of make me think that it doesn't come across really good.
To be concise.
Yeah, it comes across much better when it's really concise.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
would definitely take it not for my research proposal, but just for everything.
For everything, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's good to experience that. Eh? And sometimes we think more words is better, but it's not always the case. No, absolutely not.
And it's also great, I loved how she dealt with the Imagineering topic, because it wasn't that the word Imagineering was in every paragraph, but she addressed all the issues in such an Imagineering way, and at the end she said, yeah, that's strategic Imagineering. I think that was really cool.
That's true, you don't have to lecture in a proposal what Imagineering is, you have to act, and approach it as such. Oh, that's nice, you pointed that out. Yes?
Yeah, that you really have to also consider someone else has to read it as well.
Yeah. So have others read it,
Yeah.
because at one point you don't know anymore. You know all the sentences by heart. Have your coach read it, but also maybe peers help each other with that. Yeah, have that reader in mind. Manu? Any takeaway?
Yeah, I think what I've done for my bachelor so far, I think I have a pretty clear view of what to do. I just need to adjust it to the Imagineering approach. So that's the thing I really need to dive into. But I think the overall objectives and formulating research questions will be kind of familiar.
Okay.
To do.
Any advice to yourself? To do
Start
not to
earlier
forget.
than normal.
Start earlier. Good. Yeah, I like that advice. Cynthia.
What I take with me that this research proposal should be really rich in information,
That's nicely put.
not just filling the pages.
Yeah.
So it's actually valuable.
Yeah.
And also the findings are valuable for the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they're it's an opportunity to get also maybe a paid job or something.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I like really how you said it has to be rich, because it has to be concise, but you have to also you do a lot in, you know, only those 1,000 or 1,500 words. Yeah? So it has to be rich. It has to be really, everything you say has to make sense. No filling pages. Yeah. Okay, good. So then for the last part, I want to go to the literature review. I'm not going to go very in-depth in the sense that I already spent hours and hours with you talking about everything that has to do with literature review. So I'm not going to repeat all that. You already have that as a base. But it's good to have a look at what Sophia also asked at the start of this session. What is expected from a literature review within the proposal? Yeah, so have a look at that. So it's your second chapter, so also 1,000, 1,500 words. And now you had 3,000 words. Yeah, so it's half, a third of what you have written for the assignment you submitted last week, last Sunday. So bear that in mind.
Lucky for you. That's good.
So what you do in the literature review is to relate the problem or the challenge to the current body of knowledge. So if we talk about employee engagement, much has already been written about that. So you need to locate your research in that body of knowledge. If you talk about co-creation, there's already things written about that. So you need to locate your research in that. I'm now working with a student from last year, still with a proposal, and it's about learning communities. And I learned through her because she's now diving into sense of community, what are all kinds of, so you have to locate your research in what's already there. That's basically the idea of the literature review in the proposal. So basically, you expand upon the information you present already in chapter 1. It would be really weird if the literature review is completely disconnected with what you've written in chapter 1. Yeah, so where chapter 1 gives you a critical analysis of the challenge and says, okay, this is what we need to research. The chapter 2 gives the theoretical, the literature underpinning of it. Yeah, so I also always say to my students, introduce already these kind of words in the challenge. So in your case, you had transactional. What was the word that transformational, transactional,
Transactional
engagement. So in that proposal, transactional engagement is a key term that is related to literature, of course. It's already good to kind of introduce that in the challenge, although you go more in depth on that in the literature review, saying, okay, author A, B, C talked about you have different kind of engagements. They talk about the transactional engagement, where others talk about blah 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 engagement, and I focus on transactional engagement because, etc. Yeah, it's always good to already have your reader ready that these theoretical constructs will be thrown at them. So it grounds your knowledge question, but also grounds your research questions. So, for example, if I now look at the student I'm now working with, it's about this learning community, so it's about sense of community. She has find models, what influence sense of community. It's about relationships and membership and something like that. So it could be that your main question is about sense of community, and that you then decide, my research question is going to be, I look at these relationships, so that you use this model to kind of structure your main question in your research questions. Yeah? So, that's also what I mean, it can provide an analytic framework for your data analysis, because then you use this model, this sense of community model, as a starting point to analyze data you will gather later on in the project and to kind of say something about it. Yeah? But the most important thing is that you say, how does this bullet point, how does my research connect to research that has already been done? Yeah, we don't want you to reinvent the wheel. And I go back to the dinner table and the ongoing dialogue I talked in block 1 about. Your part now, when you write in your proposal, you're basically taking a chair to sit at this dinner table. Yeah? So of course, if you focus on sense of community and you have no clue, you know, what has already been written or what people already have learned about what influence sense of community, how is that developed, it's a pity because then you're reinventing the wheel. Yeah, so you have to locate your research to that. So that established a link between what you are proposing to study and what has already been studied. It could be that you use something, that you build upon something. It could even be maybe that you say there's a gap. You don't have to, but it could be. And this enables also in the end to, when you're finished, so when you've written your paper, and as I said, when you write your paper you say, I'm going to contribute, people are going to learn from my case. So then you have to contribute also to the literature. And you say, okay, a lot has been written about appreciative inquiry, it works in a lot of contexts, but in this context, it did not work because we did not take this and this into consideration. So you're also adding on, not only on the practices of imagineering, but also on the body of knowledge, on the literature. So that's why it's good, you already have a starting point, also in your proposal phase. Yeah, what are important aspects for your study. So, in the proposal it's very linear. Chapter 1, challenge, that ends with these questions. Chapter 2, your literature review. Chapter 3, your methodology. The process is like this. Yes? And with the student I was working with now, I got a bit stuck because she wanted to finish chapter 1 and then go to the literature review. And I said, that's impossible. You cannot decide on your final research questions about sense of community if you have not read into the topic. Yeah? So, but you will read more or you will come up with other things. So everything is connected to each other. So in the end, if you change something in your 3rd chapter, it means you have to go back to your problem analysis, see if the literature review is still up to date, so the methodology is still suitable. Yeah, so everything is connected. So be prepared for this chaos, yeah, because this will happen. Absolutely will happen. And then include your coach in the process soon, because your coach can sometimes help to make sense of things, yeah? Or to kind of reassure you, you're fine. Even though it's now chaos for you, it's fine. Because this is the paradox, as I said, this looks so linear and so straightforward, but you need to go through this process to get here. So that's kind of the paradox between chapter 1 and 2. Also often by reading literature, you get inspired to basically write. So sometimes students write first chapter 2 in the literature review before they actually finalize chapter 1. It could be. So be prepared to that. So as a last exercise for this morning session, I would like to ask you to... Oh.
Is chapter 1 the best place to start though?
Yes, because you start with your application company, what's going on. That's always the starting point. What's the challenge, what kind of transformation is needed? So you have to start with that. But then when you have asked some critical questions and had some cups of coffee, it's always good to go to the literature then. And see, okay, what has been written about it. So I would advise to write chapter 1 and 2 simultaneously. Yeah, I want to say successfully, but that's after, no, at the same time. Yeah. But it starts with the application company. So what I would like you to do is to continue reading for the literature review. That's also a couple of pages. And then we're going to discuss that chapter in light of the assessment criteria. Yeah? What time is it now? So how much time do you need to read those pages? 15, 20 minutes? So is it 20 minutes? That means that I will start discussing at 20 to 1. Okay. But that's perfect time. Yeah, because then, yeah, perfect.
12:21?
12:40.
Ah, 12:40.
then the tutor review.
Hmm?
Then the tutor review.
Yeah, 20 minutes, and then think about this question.
Yes. Dat is een bloemen, hè?
Ooh, it's a guy who is interested in blockchain. He's into finance.
I googled them.
Oh, look at there are more gosh, yeah, that's excellent. Actually, there are 3 more. Good. Oh my god. There are 4 people coming. Where? Started a meetup on about Imagineering.
25th
Yeah.
of November?
Yeah. Oh, this is my workout.
What are you gonna do at this meetup?
Talk about complexity.
You have exercise.
I thought of what's the different thought of a structure, but I can change.
Where will you do it?
In the public library. Because it's free.
Guys, do you have any ideas for the afternoon, for the portfolio session? Anyone has anything?
I do.
Wow.
There's your picture behind it.
It's my self-portrait. Doesn't it look similar?
Yes, that's a good picture.
Oh, it's 29 members.
Same.
Like twins.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness, it looks too similar.
Too similar there.
Oh my god.
Ja, wordt lid.
Dit moet ik leuk, want tienes que hacer esa cara.
Waar heb je al niet?
Heb je al niet? Wel, nee. Ja, zeker. Same.
It does look a little bit.
Yes. And send to you. And everyone in bed.
No me importa. Es un chiste.
Je wilt ook in Sevilla.
Yeah. If you send one to people, I have one that's worse of you. Just so you know.
And I have another words.
No,
Yes.
I have the worst.
Yes, I know that. Hey, send to you too.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Heb je zelf 2 keer.
Ja, dat ging automatisch. Vond ik het niet hebben.
Nee, leuk, dat is toch die ene die...
Oei.
Is het
Ik ken haar naam.
Ingenieur.
Ik ken haar naam.
Ja, nee, tuurlijk, ja. Leuk, daar achteraan. Oh, wat
No, we don't have time.
Okay. You're all able to finish
Yes.
reading?
Yeah.
I think the literature reviews in the various proposals that were here on the table, I scanned at least those three, very different. The one you have, I think we didn't have a word limitation yet. I think that one was written, we didn't have a word limitation yet. And I think
Quite long.
you can notice, eh?
Yeah.
In that one we also didn't have a word limitation yet. And you can notice. And then you also see, I hope you see that having more words and writing more does not automatically mean it's better.
Oh.
I don't know how you felt about it, but let's go through the bullet points. So from the proposals you've read, does the literature review provide the reader a comprehensive review of the literature related to the challenge problem under investigation? How do you feel about the proposals you've read? You read. so
What I thought was really odd is that this one is all about co-creation, but she starts with motivation. Why doesn't she start with co-creation?
I agree. The literature review should be about co-creation,
Yeah.
because that's the challenge,
Yeah,
and not motivation.
And it's okay that she includes motivation, but she starts with it, so it makes it more important than it should be.
Yeah. Bear that in mind,
Yeah.
write that down, because once you're in the process, oh, you read so much, etc. But exactly, I think that's top up. It should be about the challenge, the main topic. That's the
Yeah.
basic thing you're going to relate your research to. Yeah. Yeah. Well. How was it with the other proposals?
I really loved the idea for week one, because basically she said, well, the most important here is motivation, because we have to motivate them to work
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
But I really loved how she did it. So she started with motivation, but then said, well, but actually motivation is a system, and there are like 4 different things which make up motivation, like interaction, decision-making
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
It was really cool, because,
Yeah.
so it will be like everything about motivation.
Yeah.
She get all these little paragraphs, and it's really insightful.
Yeah. So I think that absolutely, I agree with Iris said. It should be about co-creation.
Yeah,
But she started with motivation, which is one of the research questions, but then she really dives into it. She does not take that, also the theoretical concept for face value, but she really dives into it, what have people written about it, and dissect it more and learn about that concept, and also how you can then use that in your own research. I think she did that well. Yeah, I agree. Other, Boscalis.
I think the same problem, because I didn't understand it was about employees' engagement, but it was sometimes mentioned about it, just like, okay, don't forget that I have this challenge. It was just like some phrases about employee engagement, and moreover, it was in the whole literature review, because it was about influence of organization. It was the second part. It was about how to increase employee engagement.
Yeah.
But it wasn't answered on this. It was.
You don't have to answer the question.
Yes, but it wasn't anything. It was just.
But I do agree with you that the whole topic the main topic is employee engagement.
But it was
One of
about-
her questions is about organizational culture, but she starts with organizational culture. And this should
Yes.
be about employee engagement.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay if you start with organizational culture, but it was about the influence. So you need to connect your employee engagement, but she's talking only about organizational culture.
Yeah,
It was so strange.
yeah, you
And
have
it
to,
was
yeah.
the whole literature review, it was something from different topics, and she tried to make it in different chapters with different names.
You
It wasn't
see,
one
she worked
connection.
really hard about, how do I review, how do I synthesize, but it also becomes really messy.
Yes, and it was just like she separates some chapters, subtopics, but in general you don't follow the main idea. You don't have this red line through this employee engagement. You have from different topics something in literature review.
Yeah. Well, I would make a red line in that sense, also for your reader. But I would say, okay, employee engagement is the main topic. What do we know? Are there various streams or perspectives? What are key? You know, you can still make a red thread through
Yes,
it.
you can do it,
Yeah.
but
But this went a little bit from over the place.
Yes,
eh?
she didn't
Hops
do it.
jumped a bit from topic to topic. Yeah, and you see she tried so hard to review and synthesize. You really see that, but it's too much.
Yes.
Yeah. The jobbers.
I feel like there's a red line in this literature review. Like she goes from complexity to platform, and then in
Yeah.
platform she says something about values, then she goes to values, and she says something about, oh no, I don't know if that's here, but
Engagement.
she goes on
Yeah.
and on about
Yeah.
topics she's talking
Yeah.
about. I like that,
But I think it's a bit too much.
yeah.
So the question is, do you really need to explain complexity
Everything,
in your
yeah.
literature review? Here the main question is this transactional engagement. I would have started with that,
Yeah.
because that's the key concept in your main question.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also she ends with Imagineering. I also don't know why it should be in your literature review. But I think what she did, what is nice, very nice to read, she go, you understand your storyline.
Yeah, exactly.
And she goes from broad to concrete, and that's really nice. But I think she puts too much elements in there that is not needed to underpin her own study.
So shouldn't you talk at all about Imagineering?
I would not. In a literature review, or your literature review really relates to your main question, your research questions, and a little bit to your objective. So depends. If it's very clearly stated, I think in one of those elements. I remember a proposal I assessed last year that was about the urge for an organization to create dialogue. That was kind of the objective, to create more dialogue. So the literature review was about dialogue in that sense. And I cannot imagine that Imagineering sometimes, but Imagineering is not a word that necessarily will come back in your main knowledge question and your research questions or your objective. And
You
your
already talk about it in your...
yeah, it's the
first
whole,
chapter,
your whole
yeah.
approach. Whereas the literature review kind of focus on that aspect, on those three elements. Yeah.
Okay.
Keon, how do you feel about the literature review?
I have my doubts about the start because I think the introduction is quite long, but then we didn't have a restriction on words, so
Yeah.
maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not
He
always
does-
necessary,
I
yeah?
think
So it
it's
doesn't
he.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, so he does, I think he has a quite critical look on what was it? What frameworks there are
Yeah.
and how they lack information or they lack, I think there was something else as well. Well, he has a critical
Yeah, yeah.
view on what he has, what he's seen.
Yeah.
Then I also find it very, how do you say, very stiff and maybe very not imaginary.
Very abstract, yeah? It's not
Yeah.
appealing. Yeah? We talked about
Yeah,
appealing
it's
before.
pretty hard to read
It's
if
not
you're not
appealing to
into
read.
the topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He mentions something about Imagineering once, I think, at the end, that they should include complexity because every organization is complex, and that's the only part that I like to read. So, no, but I think it's
Yeah.
interesting, but
Yeah.
it's not my
No.
interest, so it's very difficult to.
And he could have written it in a more appealing way, I absolutely. What I really like about this literature review, it's too long, I would downsize it a lot, etc. I would write it more appealing. But basically already on the first page he says, what he does is, he looked into the literature review in the literature, and then he kind of detected that you can divide them in three kinds of categories. Nobody said it, that's his review.
Yeah.
Hey, you find articles that just give frameworks how to adopt agile, and it's very to-do plan of approaches. You have some empirical research on it, And you have something about organizational cultural change. In the end, that's his focus. But that's something that I really liked. He actually reviewed literature, came to a certain conclusion that he related to his own challenge and topic.
And it's pretty interesting that he actually can divide it into 3
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
That he saw that from reading all this literature.
yeah. And that sometimes also help for your red thread in your literary review to think about that. Do I see a certain pattern, or can I categorize it in a certain way, or can I say what's positive, what do people agree, what do they all on what do authors disagree? So sometimes it helps to make it a little bit more critical, not just descriptive, so not just, reproducing what you've read yourself. Okay, so I think we covered also already a little bit the other bullet points, but let's have a look at it. Does the literature review clearly ground the own investigation? So when you've read the literature review, do you see a clear connection between the study they proposed, in the first chapter, and the literature review? So I often talk about Christmas trees. When you have, after chapter 1, you start broad and you have arrived, at a certain focus. Yeah. What you're not allowed to do is add all kinds of other new topics, that's your Christmas tree, in chapter 2 and 3. So if this is the focus, if this is your main question, that means the literature review and your methodology have to stick in that box. You're not allowed to make Christmas trees. Yeah? So how do you feel about the literature reviews you have read? Do they really ground the own investigations? Is there a clear link to chapter 1? Or is it all over the place? Or what's your assessment?
I think in our literature review, she really did. She referred back to it very often as well. But she didn't analyze it very critically.
Yeah.
So she said, I felt like this literature review was a little research on its own with a conclusion of what she concluded of all the different theories. But she does mention how the literature refers to her research and her proposal in that way.
So that she did, but you feel it's more in a descriptive way than actually locating.
Yeah, instead of analyzing and making a stance and reviewing it, she used review to make her point.
Yeah. It's exactly the other way around.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. Yeah. About other proposals? How was that?
Mine. Okay, she uses literature review just to fill the blanks, because she says, okay, complexity theory, and she pays. And then butterfly effect, imagineering approach, generative image, ownership. And then the only thing she uses in the thesis is ownership. That's what she wants to do. And then
So she made a Christmas tree, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
And then she opens again, because first chapter of the research is appreciative inquiry, that it was not
Nothing
there.
about
And here.
She made a U-turn, or instead of making a Christmas tree. Yeah. But so you can get lost. You have now been through the process of writing a literature review. You know how you can get lost there in that. So constantly check, what was the challenge again? What was this about? What's my main focus? I talked about killing darlings. Well, in the proposal you murder lots, you know. You just keep a few. Yeah. That's basically the main pitfall. Okay, explained, discussed and synthesized. How do you feel the student did in your proposals? Yeah?
Well, yeah, what she did was really great. That she discussed the theory and then immediately says, well, that could be applied to the company, or that could not, and then he justifies it.
Yeah.
I think, well, for a company, it must be really valuable.
Yeah.
It's really applied.
But the question is then, by doing that, are you really explaining, discussing and synthesizing the literature? That's the question then. Huh? So yes, she makes this link, how it could be applied. But the one thing is also that you kind of have to discuss the literature, say something, not just sum up, think about my grocery list. I said in the previous course, don't make a grocery list, but you have to do something with these authors.
Yeah, I have a question about that, because she does it as well. She's already looking for answers in this literature review. Is that allowed, or do you say just discuss it, do your research further, and then go to the...
You don't have to give, I said before, you don't have to give an answer.
Yeah.
You just say, this is my topic, this is what the literature has been written about, and this is why I locate mine.
Yeah.
Or I connect to these authors, but I do not connect to this. And you show you've done your homework, that you're not reinventing the wheel, that you're not work with these kind of theoretical constructs completely unknowingly, just making things up. You did your homework, you know what it is about. But you don't have to draw conclusions out of it, or, well, what he did. I think that's nice if you're able to categorize or say something about it, or if it's about appreciative inquiry and say, hey, it's striking, everybody is talking about the magic of it, but I lack the critical voice is lacking in the literature, for example, so it's something that I will keep in mind in my study. You can say these kind of things, but you don't have to give answers in your literature review. Discussing, explaining, synthesizing other.
Yeah, I think in this one she's also maybe a little bit summing up and not really...
Yeah, more describing what's out there than actually discussing it. Well, here it's very clear, this one, that there's a clear discussion, a clear synthesis in that sense. Boscalis, how was it here? Synthesizing, discussing, or more summing up?
No, summing up.
I agree.
Because it's just like literature review, it wasn't any discussing.
No.
At all.
And you see she tries, but in the end she
tries.
sums up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if I would write, I would put a bit my opinion in this.
Yeah.
Because I think, and it's on, I don't know, I'm not sure that I'm right, but in this topic, when you're talking about employees' engagement and you feel that it's a bit dry, I don't know, this too literature review, too much. You should put your opinion about, your experience about it.
Yeah, you have to be careful with the opinion in the
Yes,
sense that you have to discuss and synthesize, and then we get to this last one, show a critical stance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would
And cannot just say, I feel like this.
No,
eh?
I would mean this, yes, like you said.
Yeah. Because that's the last one. Do you feel that there were critical stances towards the literature in your...
No.
No.
Could be stronger.
Could be stronger. I think in Guillaume there was, because he really, did this review, made this category about it. But that's sometimes difficult. So it also helps to structure it via questions. As I said, in what way do people agree? In what way do people not agree, authors do not agree, what is still a gap, or are you missing, or something like that. And so that helps. Okay, this is the end of Chapter 2 of the proposal. Next week I'm going to talk with you about Chapter 3. We're going to do that in a far more interactive way. So I would want to ask you again to bring those 2 books. What I will do is I've selected all kinds of methods that I think work really well in Imagineering research. I have a big hat. You can draw a straw. You get some time to prepare kind of a workshop on that method, so that we experience all kinds of different methods. So that's my idea for next week. And in the morning I will explain a little bit more something about theoretical framework and ethics, etc. And then in the afternoon we do the creative part of it. So, yeah, that's the idea. Any questions for now?
When are we receiving the grades?
So our exam regulation always indicates that we have 10 working days to assess. So I sent the coaches the deadline to December, because then the 10 working days, so that's the latest.
I have one question about that as well. Because if you get a sufficient grade Could you still hand it in one more time and then the highest grade will come? Okay, good.
Okay. I understand that these classes are not the most inspirational classes. It's a little bit boring research, etc.
Well,
But
actually,
I
I
do.
liked it today.
Okay, but I hope you understand that it's also important. You know, to
I think
discuss
this is very useful, all these examples and reading them and analyzing them.
Yeah.
Talking
Good.
about them, listening.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, go out there, go to the application companies, have a lot of cup of coffees, and I will see you again next week. And maybe some of you this afternoon for the portfolio feedback consultations.
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, we don't know what it.
Are you
Yes,
writing this as well?
We don't know
It's
what
my
to
goal,
expect.
yeah.
Okay.
I think you can just come by and ask feedback.
Oh,
It's
that's
not a classical thing,
what?
because
Yeah, we didn't make a schedule, huh? Well, if you want to have feedback, maybe it's just good to be here at 2, all, and then we see if we do it classical or not. I haven't done it before. This year is the first year I'm Margot's assistant in block 2. So I don't know how she organized it in previous years, to be honest.
okay.
It's important to share, I think.
Yeah, maybe it's
Yeah,
nice to
I want
share.
to
So if you
share
want to have
ideas,
feedback,
so
just be
yeah.
here at 2. We just see what everybody wants or needs feedback on. We share it a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
But I cannot imagine that takes the whole afternoon.
No.
No.
Okay, cool.
The portfolio.
So we have today.
Does anybody needs to go to the cafeteria?
Yes.
Food!
Yes. Food. Is anyone gonna stay here?
You
I
can
am.
Oh,
I think I am.
and if you want more, because I will throw it away.
Do you, Sophia, do you
Is that
think or are you sure?
I'm
Yes,
not
I
sure.
is right.
You're not
I
sure?
might go to the bathroom though.
I will throw them away, so anyone wants to...
Oh no, I have too much papers.
Zijn deze allemaal voldoende?
Yeah.
Dat wel.
All the proposal shows are all...
Toch ook belangrijk om te weten.
Nee, dit
Yeah,
is
pass.
super
And it's
fijn.
not just a pass. So they're not excellent, they're not 6s, but they're also not 8s.
Okay.
So it's in
So there's
between.
7s.
Between 6.5 and a 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 7s. Yeah, these are the 7s.
But what
Yeah, you can take it if you want one extra.
what mark you need to receive to pass?
5.5.
This is a 5.5.
No, you need the 5.5 to
Oh,
pass.
sorry.
They're all 7s. For different reasons.
Oké, ik zou het als hier nemen. Dus dan kan je zo meteen bij de deur.
Like shoot you
Nee, als je iets kwijt is, dan is jij het bent. Dus zou je dat jezelf wel aandoen dan? Oh, dit ziet er heftig uit. Ik heb dit dus niet besteld.
Yeah,
maar
it's
is
just
dat
a,
wel-
it's just a basic book. So it's for those who are not confident in their background, you know, for previous education. It's like
Ja.
in your previous education also a book, so you can rely on that. But if you didn't have that or you're
Yeah.
a bit insecure, then this is a
Dit is
nice
everything.
basis book.
Ja.
And it's social research, it's applied research, and it gives a lot of, it's quantitative, qualitative, it deals with ethics,
Yeah.
everything, it deals with everything. So,
Do they have it in the library?
yeah.
I'll just get it.
Because this is an older edition, they had it, now this is the same edition. I thought they were not that, I think they were. Yeah,
Dat
that's
ik
just money.
Ja.
Yeah, I think it
Money is
was
money.
around 40 euros.
Okay.
That's,
It's not
But if
so
they have it in the
expensive for a
library,
book
yeah.
like this, but
yeah, but then again, how much do you use it? Because it's just as a background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have a good book from your previous studies,
Yeah, I
that's
have it.
also then
Yeah.
it's fine.
Are you staying here?
Yeah.
You as well?
30 minutes. Ciao, tot zo.
Ciao, tot straks.
Господи, домой приехал уже. I was standing yesterday in traffic to Amsterdam. Not 1 hour, 30 minutes, so how you
What?
said.
Sorry, what?
I
No,
was
yesterday
standing-
I turned around, it was like 2 hours.
I was standing 2.5.
2.5, yeah, I decided not to do it. I
Two-
got a notification, it says it added 17 minutes, you always know it's gonna be more. So I was on my way for like 10 minutes, I was almost at Utrecht. I was like, no.
It
no,
was
I'm turning
it was
around,
really
I'm going to
I
Eindhoven.
couldn't even I needed to go in Amsterdam, and my dad just came there and I needed to give some presents. But when I was coming from university, it was 1 hour 17 minutes, and then 1 hour I saw for 40 minutes. 1
Yeah.
hour 1 minute didn't change, but